Folks, tell me honestly, cow print and tartan, yes or no? I'm kidding, I wear it all the time. I'm very strategically wearing my Positive Panic patch on my hat. And if you don't know, this is some merch that I've brought out so that you can make your own clothes that you already own into merch. And they also have climate dares attached so you can treat them like scout badges. And a lot of the challenges are personal changes that you can make in your own life. Now, I made them personal challenges even though I've read so much of the research about how organising is really important, how large-scale systemic change is what's necessary, and from a purely mathematical level, little decisions and little changes aren't going to save us fast enough from climate catastrophe. I get that! I get that! But I thought about it long and hard, and I made the challenges personal because I don't think we get to big change without small change. I think we've got a scarcity mindset. It's not either or, it's yes and. Yes, use your reusable coffee mug at every chance that you can and be wanky about it. Be proud of that. But also hassle your MP about the fact that companies are allowed to make mass amounts of disposable cups and just throw them away before they're even in a shop for a consumer to use. Chow down proudly on your soya yogurt, don't get me wrong, but also join a group that's trying to stop all of our tax subsidising a really expensive meat industry we actually can't afford. If you think the collective price we're all forking out for avocado toast every Saturday is bad, wait till you hear about big dairy. But of course, those of you who've been to this channel before will know that, Lena, you're in a forest. That probably means you're about to go on a rant, and I am about to go on a rant. Let's go. The rant I am serving you up today, hot and fresh out of the kitchen, is about the people who like to point that out to you when you do a small thing. That there's no way in hell everybody else is going to make that choice, that the choice you're making isn't as good as another choice you could be making, and ultimately it's too little, it's too late, there's no point. Some of you might have people like that in your actual life, and some of you might have people like that living in your head. Little versions of you sitting there going, does it really matter? That's cute, but you're not a millionaire, are you? You don't run one of those 100 businesses that are polluting the planet. You're a powerless little rodent with very little charisma and the spending power of a pigeon. Give up! I know, because I have somebody like that living in my head. And here's the 5 things I would point out to them if they would stay still long enough to listen to me, which is very, very rare. The first reason to start making small personal lifestyle changes is that, wait for it, it won't work. I've seen a lot of hot takes recently on the impotence of the zero waste movement, and I get it, good points were made, but I think the onlookers from the street might have missed the actual point. Classic. To me, the meta point of the zero waste movement and the kind of life of its own it's taken on, I'm not saying this is the agenda of anyone who started it or anyone who's in it, but the kind of monster of zero waste as a beast as it moves through the world is that as you start to try and create less waste, you realise how much inadvertent waste you are forced to make just by living. And it's really annoying finding out which bits of your weekly food shop you can recycle with your local council becomes like Pythagoras theorem. Trying to buy underwear that isn't made out of plastic, or relatively simple things like buy some food while you're out that isn't fucking everything up. That becomes quite hard, and the harder you realise it is, the angrier you get. And the angrier you get, the more you feel. And you know what the climate movement is missing? People. And you know why people aren't there? Because they're not feeling anything, they're not angry enough. And when they do get angry, it's at the wrong people. It's not the people who are flooding their homes or poisoning their water or spending their tax money on their slow demise. It's people blocking roads and throwing soup at paintings of nature. I have a video up here about how ironic that is, but we don't have time for that right now. In my first few years of really thinking seriously about my own carbon footprint, however fictitious and silly that concept originated as, I started thinking that anger was a byproduct of me trying to live a more sustainable life. And now I actually realise it's the main event. The numbing is the problem. The numbing is the issue. If we solve the numbing, I think the other things will follow. So if your impression of people who are trying to live a more sustainable life is that they're more calm and balanced and zen, you'd be wrong. They're all furious. Jump in, the water's fine. And most of them aren't even judging you for trying. They understand how hard it is to not, because they have been trying, that is. Does that make sense? Another thing I think people misunderstand about changing things like consumer choices is that is not time wasted. That time we're spent making consumer choices most of the time isn't time we could have spent elsewhere. Just like all of this screen time that I had last week, I couldn't have spent reading War and Peace because I was doing it in the tiny moments while having a little poo, or when I should have been texting somebody back, or answering an email, or watching my pasta cook so it doesn't boil over. A lot of the time consumer choices are choices we're making anyway. We're already at the supermarket. We're already ordering what we naively believe to be finally a truly waterproof jacket. So whether we're on Vinted or on H&M.com, these choices are accessories to our life and can be accessories to other kinds of activism. It doesn't mean they're taking away from the other stuff. Get it? Good. The third one I would say is that scalable impact isn't always the point. I find this is a bit of a misunderstanding when people try to argue with me about my own reaction to learning about things like how the meat industry works, which my reaction was to just stop eating meat. And the replies from strangers can be quite smarmy sometimes. And in my head, I'm just answering like, yeah, I know, that's not what I'm going for here. And that it comes to that is weird, but I've made this point in other videos where I can compare it to like the belief that violence is wrong, and therefore teaching a child not to kick another child. You're not trying to stop them from doing that because you believe it will lead to systemic change around violence. You're just worried about the shins of that other kid and the emotional literacy of the hitter as they grow up. Seeing your part in something and wanting to opt out, or encouraging others to opt out, doesn't have to have a big master plan behind it. It doesn't have to have a graph proving why it will make a difference. You don't have to bring a pie chart every time you want to eat a veggie pie. You know, you see? Like, something that fucks with me to this day, and as somebody who stopped eating meat relatively recently in the grand scale of things and has no agenda to try and judge you, because I was doing it up until recently, but something that fucks with me about thinking about that time is that I didn't just consume a piece of the pie of like mass meat consumerism. It wasn't just a percentage of molecules that weren't ideal for us all to be eating. I consumed somebody's. They were sometimes whole carcasses of a living thing that had intellect and preferences and loved ones and memories. So if somebody put a roasted chicken in front of me now, I wouldn't be thinking, well, actually, the meat industry is super problematic and we all have a part to play in its destruction. No, from an emotional perspective, I wouldn't think about that immediately. The first thing I would think would be like, I can't eat that someone. That's not a something, it's a somebody, and I can't eat them. Not because I think it's going to stop anybody else from eating them, but to logically honour the stuff that I know and I believe it cannot be done by me. I'd feel like I was betraying myself on some kind of egotistical, selfish level. And I hope to unnumb myself enough to start feeling like that about the clothes that I used to buy. It's not that fast fashion is just on a mass scale wrong, or we should get out of the habit on it, or because we're all doing it, it becomes unideal. It's that each individual garment was sewn by another person, probably on the other side of the world, and I am taking their labour and exploiting them by paying somebody else to do it on my behalf, and that's like their real hands, like their real work. Somebody made this jacket with their Tuesday in between their toilet and smoke breaks, if they even got them. What I'm consuming isn't just symbolically connected to other people, it literally is. This is real. I don't think that we're grounding ourselves really enough in reality sometimes. Everything becomes about like statistics and ideas and like probabilities and highest impact. And now I'm worrying, even saying that I sound really la-di-da or really hippie in our judgmental idea of the word hippie, or really away with the fairies. And when we say away with the fairies or hippie, I think we sometimes just mean feeling too much, too emotional, taking it too seriously, taking it too literally. It's a bit embarrassing. That's how I even feel when I try to voice stuff like that, and I'm even judging myself as I'm saying it. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is that when you say to somebody else, hey, I don't think that thing you're doing is having a big impact, think about, depending on the situation, the individual implications of what they're doing, and whether just because it doesn't matter on a global scale, like that doesn't mean that it doesn't matter. If we woke up tomorrow and only one human died on the earth, on a global scale that would probably be a cause for celebration, like wow, what a day, only one person died, but the person who'd lost somebody would still be having a shit day. Am I making any sense? Let's move on to the next point. This one for me is a bit of a piss easy one. change is coming anyway. Like, the more you read about the climate crisis, and I've been forcing myself to, because I'm doing this podcast called No Books on a Dead Planet, where we read climate books so you don't have to. I'm not telling you to read climate books, I'm telling you to listen to us read climate books. In there, it's becoming increasingly clear to me that we kind of don't have a choice, and that's kind of relaxing. Like, I think in 20 years, meat won't be that available, so I just want to get ahead with my vegetarian cooking, because it's really not that good right now. I'll be honest. We have been consuming a lot of microwave jacket potatoes and baked beans in our house recently. I want to get used to using public transport, because I honestly, the more I read, I don't think we're going to have access to individual cars that much in the future. And that's if things go well. Do you know what I mean? If we play our cards right, it's still going to be fun. I don't mean this to be like a sad prediction of the future, but these things are going to change anyway. So if you do have the resources and the time and the opportunity to start early, even if it's just like a goody two-shoes impulse to want to be top of the class and like be like, actually, I know how to sew on a button, I know how to gather clean drinking water, then like turn that toxic impulse into something useful. I support it. But yeah, I think some of the arguments against changing small lifestyle things is that there's no point. And I have to think the opposite. I have to think the more I learn, the more, that's the whole point. Bold of you to assume, sir, that we're going to get a choice as to whether we eat meat or not in the future. So join me in buckling down and learning that lentil masala recipe, because right now the future of my eating is looking pretty beige. And then finally, small lifestyle changes can be a gateway drug to stopping pretending. For years, I knew little bits about the climate and what's coming, and I was scared to read anymore. And essentially, I kind of gaslit myself into carrying on like nothing was wrong. It led to me, I think, looking back, having pretty bad self-esteem, self-inflicted poor self-esteem, because I was forcing myself to be somebody who pretends they don't know. And just because you don't change little lifestyle things, if you don't carry around a keep cup, or you can't give up dairy for whatever reason, it doesn't mean that you're not living in the present reality, because it's about what you're able to do. But if you're somebody who is able to change things and you just don't, even though it would be relatively easy, even though if it would only take a few weeks or a few months to adjust. Well, I don't know about you, but that affects what I'm telling myself about who I am. I'm not somebody who faces up to what's really going on in my life. I'm not a present person. I will kind of let myself away with being delusional at the expense of my own fun, at the expense of my own self-esteem, at the expense of my own development. And look, I'm the first to say that I don't think the point of life is to like grow as a person. I think you make your own meaning, and essentially mine is to just have as much fun as possible, because absolutely hilarious that I was even born and I'm harboring this many microbes, and I'm even a mammal who has the ability to make silly little YouTube videos on the internet. I think that's funny. I think that's freaking hilarious, and I'm gonna be laughing about that for as long as possible, because evolution is weird. Like, why don't I have a neck like this? I've got a neck like this. Why? Nobody knows. We're living in a world where sperm whales have surnames. Did you know that? Because I just read this book and now I know that, and now I have to tell everybody. I don't think learning how to sort out your recycling or reuse your Ziploc bags or work out the most ethical way to buy bedding is going to change the world on its own. But I think it's a start. You're sending little signals to yourself in your brain that you live in the real world, that you will act on what you've read, that you can change your own mindset, which is like a basic self-preservation skill that you can apply to loads of different situations. It can stop you getting into toxic work situations. It can stop you dating the wrong people. It can stop you scrolling for hours when you're not even having fun. Changing what you think and how you behave once you get new information is a really good thing to let yourself do. And also it's a good starting point to start talking to the people around you. And if you can actually remember to bring your reusable cup out with you when you want a cup of coffee, maybe you can also remember to look up and not cringe when you give it to the barista. Maybe you can also be brave enough to like join a local repair group or write a polite but firm letter to your local counsellor. I think it's all part of confidence building. I genuinely think we have a bit of an epidemic of people feeling small and powerless, and on some levels, yes, we are, but we become smaller and less powerful the more we tell ourselves that. The less spaces that we're in, the less impact that our lives have on others, because the less people we actually even know. So in summary, whataboutism from the sidelines is useful when it comes to people, I think, over blaming people for their individual choices. For instance, I was at a festival this summer and there was a woman who asked a question at the end of the talk because she is from Australia and she hasn't seen any of her close family in 5 years because she feels so guilty about flying. Then the whataboutism of ghost flights and the other kinds of waste in the aviation industry and like the frequent flyers percentage of how much like fuel they're using versus everybody else. Then those things become really useful and relevant and important because God knows I really hope that woman has flown to Australia to see her family now. But if we just put a blanket judgment on all small lifestyle changes and go, oh, what, are you going to get all your rubbish in that tiny little glass jar? Well, that's a bit pointless, isn't it? We miss an opportunity to engage in other ways, because I think once I started doing the little things, the silly things, like getting a bamboo toothbrush, I started identifying as somebody who gave a bit of a shit. Not somebody who was perfect or better than anybody else, but somebody who just had the ability to give a shit. And then I started thinking, oh, well, if I do this but then I don't do this, then am I a bit of a hypocrite? And could I do that as well? Maybe I could actually do that. Maybe that would be better, because if I can do stuff and I don't, and like I might even enjoy it, then why aren't I doing some of the more like big systemic shit? Why aren't I don't know, pivoting my YouTube channel to secretly be about the climate crisis, even though you only started watching for books and rants about the royal family? Oopsie. So yeah, I often just feel like, on reflection, even though I've probably been one of those people who at some point has been like, actually that doesn't make much of a difference, telling the very small amount of people that are doing something that they're doing the wrong thing might ultimately result, instead of what you want, which is them doing an even more impactful thing, it might result in them doing nothing, because that's how shame works. I've created these positive panic patches, not because it's like the ultimate to-do list of what to do about the climate, because it's an invitation to start doing something if you're doing nothing. It's a little invite to say, hey, we're all going to do this thing. It's not the end goal, it's not the biggest thing we're going to do about the climate, but it's a start, and we're excited about where it might lead. And we also have cookies, so you should probably join us. Thank you so much for watching. This video is made possible by the Gumption Club, who tip me per video to make sure these videos keep happening, and in exchange I add them to a secret Facebook group where we chat, and we have a book club. We're actually reading The Uninhabitable Earth right now, and we're all scared, but we're scared together. If you like the look of these patches, they're available at lenanorms.com/shop, where you can join me in doing the silly little insignificant, pointless changes. Many winks. If you like this video, I reckon you might like one of these videos, and until next time, frog snog out.